Hello guys and welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about my top 5 think outside the box tank designs. So coming in at number 5 we have the Bob Semple tank. The Bob Semple tank was a tank designed by New Zealand Minister of Works Bob Semple during World War II, originating out of the need to build military hardware from available materials. The tank was built from corrugated iron on a tractor base. Designed and built during a period of uncertainty in which New Zealand feared having to defend itself from Japan invasion without external assistance. These tanks were civilian effort to design and create the means to protect New Zealand. Designed and built without formal plans or blueprints, it had numerous design flaws and practical difficulties, and was never put into mass production or used in combat. The superstructure was mounted on a Caterpillar D8 tractor. Weighing in at 25 tons and a crew of 6 to 8 people, this armament was supposed to be an anti-tank gun, but due to the state of how the armaments were in the country at the time, most of these vehicles were only mounted with machine guns. A lot of historians rip apart the Bob Semple tank, but at the end of the day other nations done this as well. You can see here a Russian DI tank, which is armour with a weapon system mounted on top of one of their tractors. And also as we move into the modern day age, you can see here out in Syria, people are putting together their own homemade tanks. They might look pants, but at the end of the day it's still better than some of the ideas that people come up with. So coming in at number 4, my next vehicle is the Praying Mantis. Now this particular vehicle is an odd design in its own self, hence the reason why I want it to go on this list. It has a crew of 2, top speed of 25 miles per hour and 2 Bren light machine guns as an armament. The armour only ranges from 6 to 9 millimeters, so it's not the best in the world, but it was designed to be used to shoot over walls and high hedgerows within the United Kingdom during the time when Nazi Germany was on the other side of the channel and we had nothing better to use. So next on my list is the Canal defence tank. This particular tank, the trials began in 1940 and the War Office ordered 300. It consisted of a normal tank chassis and a cylindrical turret which had 1 light and 1 machine gun inside it. The bulb itself was rated at 300 million candle power. It had a 910 meter range. The light itself could be used in 2 different ways. It could either be used as a spotlight when it was left on constantly, or it could be switched to its secondary phase, which was to turn on and off 2 times a second. This was used to dazzle incoming troops and make them easy targets. These turrets were mounted on various tanks. These include the Matilda II, the Churchill, the M3 Grant, and also later on the Shermans. Most of these Canal defence tanks were held back for UK defence. The ones that did manage to get over after the invasion on D-Day saw use at the bridge near Remagen, where they were used as spotlights to find the German frogmen that was trying to plant mines on the side of the bridge. So number 2 on my list has got to be mine clearance vehicles. Obviously throughout time man has laid landmines. It's been a pain in the backside and very dangerous for troops doing it on foot. As we can see here in the First World War, it's not exactly mine clearance, but the concept was there for removing unexploded ordnance off the battlefield. Now ever since then man has tinkered with a way of destroying mines before the infantry get there. Now the obvious suggestion here would be to put it on an armoured vehicle, so as you can see here we've got a Sherman chassis with big wheels attached to it. Now in the earlier models, as you can see, there's a big gap in the middle, so later models they produced one with a giant wheel in the middle. The idea obviously being to explode the mine away from the vehicle, so all you have to do is change a wheel rather than change the actual vehicle's armour itself. And then if you want to look into the future, the concept is still alive nowadays, where we got the British Army Mastiffs that are out in Afghanistan which have the chokers attached. The idea is obviously it detonates the mines in advance before it actually hits the vehicle. Also used in the Second World War, you can see here a mine plough, which once again in the future we shoot along to the modern day. We have the British Army Trojan tank, This engineering tank also has a mine plow, which is used to break through heavily mined areas. And same again, we see a picture here of a Sherman with a flail on it. This is used to strike in front of the tank with metal bars to hit the mines and set them off in advance, shoot long to the future again, and we still use those in the modern day times. And the one that takes my #1 spot is Hobart's Funnies. Now, these engineering vehicles was a really good design and they were needed to be able to get off the beaches on D-Day. The Canadians landed at Dieppe early on in the war. Now, this beach was shingles, but all of their tanks and armoured vehicles got bogged in, and as a result, it was a failure. In order for it to be a success, Hobart designed various different engineering feats. The first one was to get actual battle tanks onto the beach without having to bring in big boats and ships. To achieve this, he designed a swimming tank. This tank was called the DD tank, or duplex drive. It had two propellers at the rear and a canvas skirt around it, so it could sail like a boat up to the beach, and when it got to the beach it'd drop its skirt and be able to fight like a regular tank. The next problem that he had was to move up soft-skinned vehicles and light armoured vehicles that were wheeled. These would have problems getting up the sand beach, so a road needed to be made. Along comes the bobbing tank, which lays its own road. As the tracks drive over it, it unwinds the track, creating a road for the vehicles to move up and off the beach. The next obstacle that Hobart has to overcome is to get his tanks over the big high ramps that the Germans have built. He decides to do this by making a series of bridge laying tanks which will drive up to the obstacle, drop its ramps, and then the other tanks would drive straight up over the top and attack the enemy. Once over the top of the obstacles, the next thing that they would have to do would be blow apart the concrete bunkers. This is hard for a normal infantryman to do, so they designed a tank that had a massive shell. Along comes the bunker buster tanks. Now, bunker buster tanks were good against hard concrete targets, but to be able to weed out all the infantry, they needed to use flamethrowers. So, flamethrowers attached to Churchill tanks, and these were called the crocodile tanks. The flamethrower was primarily in the hull machine gun placement. The fuel for it was towed behind it in a trailer. Now, once all of these tanks have achieved their goal and their primary role, they now have to move out into the French countryside. Now, the biggest issue here was the Germans had seeded the areas behind the beaches with a lot of mines, so this would hinder infantry and the oncoming tanks and vehicles. So as a result, they used the flailing tank. Flailing tanks basically had chains on a spinning drum which would beat the ground in front of the tank and explode the mines before the tracks drove over it, clearing the area. So there you go guys, that's my top 5 think outside the box tank designs. If you guys can think of any more that you'd like to see in this list, by all means put them in the comments below. Thank you so much guys for watching my video. If you like what you see, don't hesitate to like, subscribe and ring that bell.